بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الصلاة والسلام على أشرف الأنبياء وإمام المرسلين سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين اللهم علمنا ما ينفعنا وانفعنا بما علمتنا وزدنا علما تنفعنا به يا رب العالمين. First of all, good to be back in the masjid. We missed the masjid and we were in Umrah, community Umrah, and alhamdulillah, me and your brothers and sisters, we made dua for our community. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to grant tawfiq for everyone here to get the blessings of Mecca and Al-Medina and perform Hajj and Umrah in a manner that pleases Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, ya Rabbil Alameen. Today, inshallah ta'ala, we'd like to start a new story in the Quran al-Kareem. Actually, it is the cause of the revelation of a surah in the Quran al-Kareem called Surah Al-Munafiqun, the hypocrites. The surah that talks about the hypocrites. And the name of the surah actually Al-Munafiqun, the hypocrites. In this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is addressing a story that happened in the fourth year of Al-Hijrah. Some background of the story: before the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam migrated to Medina, from Mecca to Medina, as we explained in the past, the Medina, there was no political system. And they were a group of leaders of tribes, and when they need to make decision, they need to make decision collectively. They recognized at some point in Yathrib, in Al-Medina, that this way it doesn't work, and they have to elect a king or a leader in Al-Medina. And they wanted to elect the most famous, rich, eloquent person among them, and they were talking about Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. After they elected him, before the inauguration, if you will, the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam migrated from Mecca to Medina. And all the tensions, all the voices, all the love and the care went to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, which was supposed to be the leader of Al-Medina, did not digest this reality. He lost his position to Rasulullah sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Not only immigrants are taking our positions, are taking our food, now they are taking our leadership. Right? They migrate from Mecca to Medina, we host them, we embrace them, and now the king is among them. So, but he knows that no matter what he does, he will not be a king in the presence of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. So he thought the best strategy for him to do is becomes what? A hypocrite. Pretend to be Muslim, be around the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, be close to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. If something happened to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, potentially I will be elected to be the king of Medina. Right? So he still had that eagerness, attachment to power, authority, and the love of power and authority actually made him hypocrites. Not that because the Islam is not convincing religion, not because he did not believe in the existence of God, it's just because he did not digest the fact that Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wasallam took the leadership from him. And he was with the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, pretending to be a Muslim, always trying to be near him, but at some point he could not resist nearness to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam, because nearness to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam at that time has a price of sacrifice and contribution. As soon as the first battle took place, which is Badr, they understood that closeness to Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam means sacrifice, means death, potential death. So he started distancing himself from the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam. And as a matter of fact, in Uhud, which is the third year of Al-Hijrah, he went out with the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and in the middle of the way, what did he do? What did he do? Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul and the hypocrites, what did they do? They left. They left the army. 1/3 of the army left with Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul. and they left the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam alone. And this is in itself very depressing, in the middle of the way you leave the army. So he wanted to make up for what happened, because he was recognized after that he's a hypocrite. So after Uhud and the defeat that Muslims faced in Uhud, and for those of you who came with us to Umrah, we visited Uhud and we explained the story over there. After Uhud, there were some tribes surrounding Al-Madinah that they had some waqaha to attack Al-Madinah. They were not even tribes, they were qutta' turuq, robbers. They thought that Medina is easy target now because they just came back from Uhud. They are exhausted, fatigued, defeated. So they wanted to take the properties of Al-Madinah, the produce of Al-Madinah. So these people called Bani al-Mustalaq. They called Bani al-Mustalaq. It's just maybe 26, 27 miles from Al-Madinah. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he had a good intelligence system at that time, he knew that Bani al-Mustalaq are about to attack Al-Madinah. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam, because he knew that they are robbers, it's not even an army, he prepared a small army to attack them before they attack Al-Madinah. Abdullah ibn Salul, he knew that this is an easy exhibition, not like Uhud, not like Badr facing Quraysh, like a serious army. So he wanted to go with the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam in this one because the risk is very what? The risk is very minimal, right? So he went with the Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam to Bani al-Mustalaq, and it was a very easy one. Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam taught them a lesson, and he came back. Taught these robbers and qutta' turuq, he taught them a lesson, and he came back sallallahu alaihi wasallam in Medina. On the way back, this story took place. This story took place. On the way back, it was a very, very hot day. And for those of you who have been in this region, you understand in the middle of the day, right, the heat of Mecca or the heat of Medina. Right? It's a very, very extreme heat. And they stopped to get they stopped around a well of water to drink. And imagine a long line, people waiting to drink from the water. And there was a group of Muhajirin and group from Al-Ansar. In the line, because people, I don't know, have you seen the mood of people when there is very hot, exhausting day? You see the mood of people? It's not a good mood. If you provoke somebody during that time, you won't get away with it easily, right? It's a human nature, right? So there was an argument between somebody from Al-Muhajirin and somebody from Al-Ansar. There was an argument, right? And this argument turned to be serious conflict. So Al-Ansari said, Ya ma'shar al-Ansar. And Al-Muhajiri said, Ya ma'shar al-Muhajirin. So the person from Al-Ansar, which is people from Medina, he called all people of Al-Ansar. And the person from Mecca, Muhajirin, he said, Ya ma'shar al-Muhajirin, all al-Muhajirin. And the issue that was between two individuals became between what? Muhajirin and Al-Ansar. And Nabi sallallahu alaihi wasallam heard. He ran to where the incident took place, and he said, دعوها فإنها منتنة أبي دعوى الجاهلية وأنا بين أظهركم. Are you reviving al-Jahiliyyah and the callings of al-Jahiliyyah and the racism of al-Jahiliyyah, and I'm still among you? دعوها, leave it. Leave this al-Jahiliyyah, tribalism. It is disgusting, it is filthy. دعوها فإنها منتنة. And subhanallah, try, brothers and sisters, to reflect. And they didn't say all Pakistanis, all Arabs. They said what? Al-Muhajirin. And Al-Muhajirin, it is a noble name that is mentioned in the Quran. And Al-Ansar, it is a noble name that is mentioned in the Quran. But the context in which Al-Muhajirin is called, the context in which Al-Ansar is called, is a filthy context. It's about disunity. It's about conflict. It's about us versus them. Right? So Nabi Sallam said, دعوها فإنها. In different occasions, actually Nabi Sallam used to, when there is noble causes, he used to make a flag for al-Muhajirin and gather them, and flag for al-Ansar and gather them, because now it's competition about goodness, spreading the deen, fighting for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So that is a noble cause. But when it's about disunity, about tribalism, it's about us versus them, about making a fitna in al-Madinah al-Munawwara, then the Nabi said, دعوها فإنها منتنة. Abdullah ibn Salul, the head of the hypocrites, he was in the back of the army. You know, these people look for an opportunity, right? This is the opportunity for the hypocrites. He heard what happened between Muhajirin and Al-Ansar, and he gathered a group of the hypocrites, his gang, and some of the Ansar that are easy to manipulate with him, and he will start telling, didn't I tell you about these people? Didn't I tell you just these people will get our jobs one day? They will do this for us, they will do this for us. And he said something. He said, سَمِّن كَلْبَكَ يَأْكُلْكَ. It is an Arabic proverb which means feed your dog and one day will eat you. Feed your dog one day. He's referring to whom? He's referring to whom? Al-Muhajirin, people who came from Mecca, which means we fed them, we host them, we gave them shelter, we support them, and now they are what? They are walking over our head. Didn't I tell you that? And then he said, لَإِنْ رَجَعْنَا إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلُ. If we go back to Medina, we will teach them a lesson. The A'az, the people with dignity, which is us, it's our land, it's our home. We tell them, go back home. We tell them what? Go back home. لَيُخْرِجَنَّ الْأَعَزُّ مِنْهَا الْأَذَلُ. There was, as he was talking, Abdullah ibn Salul, there was a young boy. His name is Zayd. He heard the conversation. So he ran to his uncle and he told him, somebody is telling this and this and this, and he's making trouble in the army of Rasulullah. He was young, but he was smart, because there was no phones at that time. If you have iPads and iPhones at that time, you will find this boy just busy with his phone. So he went to his uncle and he told him what he heard. So his uncle went to Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam, and Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam was sitting with Sayyiduna Umar ibn al-Khattab, and he said, Ya Rasulullah, my nephew told me that he heard Abdullah ibn Salul saying such and such and such. Can you assume what was the reaction of Sayyidina Umar? It's typical. Ya Rasulullah, I know somebody who will take care of him. I know somebody who will take care of Ibn Salul. Ya Rasulullah, just give me permission. Nabi Sallallahu said, Ya Umar, just sit down. So Nabi Sallallahu called Ibn Salul. And even if Sayyidina Umar killed Abdullah ibn Salul, it is a very legitimate reason. Right? They are in the war, and in the middle of the war, you are what? You are causing fitna. They call this act of treason. You are in the battlefield, and you are disuniting the army in a mission in the battlefield. So even in military standards and protocols, he deserves to be killed. Abdullah ibn Salul deserves to be killed. But the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam had a long-term vision. He said, no. He called him and he said, I heard that you are telling your people this and this. He said, Ya Rasulullah, Wallahi ma qult ya Rasulullah, إذا جاءك المنافقون قالوا نشهد إنك لرسول الله. And he started swearing, Wallahi. And the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam said, okay. He let him go. And he was raising his voice and so on and so forth. And Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam let him go. The other boy, Zayd, who heard him, felt bad. He felt that the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam believed Ibn Salul, and صدقه رسول الله وكذبني. He reported the story. He said, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam believed him and he did not believe me. So he felt so bad. After a while, Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam called this young boy. And he sat in front of him. فأسند ركبتيه إلى ركبتيه. He sat in a manner that his rukbah, his knees in front of the knees of the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam. And then he puts the Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam his noble hand on the thighs of this young boy. And he recited, أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم إذا جاءك المنافقون. He recited the entire surah. It was just revealed. The first person to hear the surah is this young boy. Sayyiduna Zayd. And in this surah, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala quoted exactly the words of this boy. لَإِنْ رَجَعْنَا إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ لَيُخْرِجَنَّ. Exactly the word by word what this boy told his uncle. There is so much to learn how Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam treated this boy. But after these incidents, not only Nabi Sallallahu Alaihi Wasallam believed in him, there is a revelation about what the hypocrites said. Now, Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul, in the middle of the army, everybody is reciting a surah talking about him. That he's a liar. إِذَا جَاءَكَ الْمُنَافِقُونَ قَالُوا نَشْهَدُ إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولُ اللَّهِ وَاللَّهُ يَعْلَمُ إِنَّكَ لَرَسُولُهُ وَاللَّهُ يَشْهَدُ. Allah testifies that they are not speaking the truth. They are lying. اتَّخَذُوا أَيْمَانَهُمْ جُنَّةً. They are using their ayman, their halif, their oath as a shield to get away. What's a dirty practice to do? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, إِنَّهُمْ سَاءَ مَا كَانُوا يَعْمَلُونَ. Then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَقُولُونَ لَا تُنْفِقُوا عَلَى مَنْ عِنْدَ رَسُولِ اللَّهِ حَتَّى يَنْفَضُّوا. And then Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said, يَقُولُونَ لَإِنْ رَجَعْنَا إِلَى الْمَدِينَةِ. They say, if we go back to Medina, the people with dignity, our land, our home, we are going to kick them out of Al-Madinah. So exactly as the boy reported to his uncle and to Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Abdullah ibn Salul felt so humiliated. Like everybody in Al-Madinah is reciting this surah and knowing that it's about me. Because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam called me. Because the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam never made the names of the hypocrites public. There was a person who had the names. Do you know his name? Sayyiduna Hudayfa. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam gave him the names of the hypocrites, the list. He gave him the name of the hypocrite, Sayyidina Hudayfa. Besides Sayyidina Hudayfa, only Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam knew about the hypocrites. But in this incident, it was a common knowledge in Al-Madinah that Abdullah ibn Ubay ibn Salul is in the top of the list of the hypocrites. So he had so much hate and anger against the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. And because of this incident, he took revenge in Hadithat al-Ifk against Sayyida Aisha. You remember the story of the slander that we covered a few weeks ago? It happened right after this incident. That was the fourth year of Al-Hijrah, and that was the early fifth year of Al-Hijrah. Just few months after that, when the next incident took place, then okay, now I will teach them a lesson. And when he slandered Sayyida Aisha radiallahu anha with al-fahisha. What we learn from this story, quickly inshallah ta'ala, is the damage of the hypocrites, even in the prophetic society. Imagine the leadership style of the Nabi sallallahu alayhi wasallam. Imagine his wisdom. Imagine his knowledge. Right? Imagine that he is receiving revelation. Yet, hypocrites not only existed in his society, they caused damage. They caused fitna, disunity. They made several attempts and serious trouble in Al-Madinah in so many times, in so many events. And so many Sahaba in so many times was impacted and influenced by the hypocrites. And you still remember the story of the slander of Aisha radiallahu anha, how so many Sahaba were victims of the dirty game of the hypocrites. So the question that every time I read this surah and other surahs in the Quran al-Kareem, if that happened in the prophetic community, if hypocrites existed in the prophetic community, if the hypocrites caused that much damage and they went to that extent in the prophetic community, while the revelation is still taking place in Al-Madinah, can you imagine the hypocrites we have in our time and age? And sometimes we wonder why we have so much trouble in our countries, in our societies. Hypocrisy is real phenomenon. It's not something, it's real. Hypocrites are among us. They exist in every community, in every society, in every Muslim country. The ulama said if there were any society to be freed from hypocrites, that would be the prophetic community. But even the prophetic community, the prophetic society, did experience hypocrisy. And they had hypocrites among them to hurt Islam internally. Subhanallah, if you read Surah Al-Baqarah, where Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala started Surah Al-Baqarah by talking about al-muttaqeen. Alif Lam Mim dhalika al-kitabu la rayba fihi hudan lil-muttaqeen, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala listed the characteristic of the righteous, of the muttaqeen. And then after that, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala talks about the kuffar. إِنَّ الَّذِينَ كَفَرُوا سَوَاءٌ عَلَيْهِمْ أَأَنذَرْتَهُمْ in 2 ayat only. The muttaqeen, 6 ayat, 5 ayat. The kuffar, 2 ayat. You know hypocrites, how many ayat? 13 ayat after that. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is laying out the types of people. Al-kuffar, He addressed them with 2 verses. The hypocrites with 13 verses. Surah At-Tawbah in its entirety, 21 pages in the Quran Al-Kareem, talks about the games, the tricks, the mechanisms that hypocrites play in every society, in every time. And in this surah as well, Surah Al-Munafiqun, an entire surah talking about them and their characteristics. Among the characteristics Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned is يَحْلِفُونَ. They swear a lot. Wallahi, wallahi, wallahi. Guess what? If you see somebody using Allah so many times, it's not a good sign. It's not a sign of truthfulness. Because if you are really truthful, you don't need to use wallahi, wallahi that many times. Right? So al-halif, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned of the characteristics of the hypocrites is kathratul halif. A lot of al-halif, swearing and oath. Among the characteristics of the hypocrites that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned is mocking the believers, criticizing everything in the Muslim community. Everything they find discussion to make fun and criticize. Like Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala said in Surah At-Tawbah, الَّذِينَ يَلْمِزُونَ الْمُطَّوِّعِينَ مِنَ الْمُؤْمِنِينَ فِي الصَّدَقَاتِ. The Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam, one day in Medina was in crisis. So he needed people to support each other. So he was sitting in Medina and people were bringing whatever they could afford. Some people, like Sayyidina Uthman, Sayyidina Abdul Rahman, brought a lot of wealth, millions. And some Sahaba brought some few dates, and that's all what they can afford. Hypocrites sitting in the back of Medina, those who gave millions, like Sayyidina Uthman, Sayyidina Abdul Rahman bin Auf, Sayyidina Zubair, they said, oh, this is just showing off. Right? And those who gave very little, they said, ماذا يفعل الله بهذه? What's going to make a difference? Like your few dates. So either way, they are going to criticize. Right? If you give a little, they criticize. They make fun. If you give a lot, they criticize. And this is the nature of the hypocrites. They criticize everything. لا يعجبهم العجب ولا الصيام في رجب, as they said. Nothing fulfills them. Instead of working, instead of contributing, just they sit back and criticize everything. This is of the alamat of al-munafiqeen. And guess what? That was taking place, the leadership of Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Not any leadership that you can criticize. Oh, because of that. Even the leader was a Nabi sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. Was Nabi, was a messenger. Yuha ilayh, yet they find a way to criticize. Because what? Because they criticize for the sake of criticism. Not anything else. Not just because they would like things to be better. Of the hypocrites, which is the most dangerous one, is itharatun na'arat. To stir up fitna. To stir up disunity. And al-khilaf and conflicts. Anybody, brothers and sisters, that is known to create fitna in the communities is a dangerous person. Of course, we don't open the hearts of people to judge who is a hypocrite, who is a believer. It's not our business. But let's ourselves learn not to do it, because we are learning this not to judge others. We are learning this to judge ourselves, number one, and clean and purify ourselves from this alamat. but also it's a very dangerous characteristics. People who continuously, consistently finding ways to disunite the community. For serious and trivial matter, just to stir up the community is very dangerous. And this is one of the main characteristics of al-munafiqin. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala mentioned a lot of these. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect our community from hypocrites. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect the ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam from hypocrites. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify the Muslim lands and the Muslim countries from these hypocrites, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to purify us from hypocrisy. Ya Rabbil Alameen, Ya Arhamar Rahimin. Hypocrisy are levels. Not hypocrisy, not one level. The worst type of hypocrisy is when you pretend al-Iman and you hide al-Kufr. This is the worst type of hypocrisy. But there are other layers of hypocrisy as well. There are other layers of hypocrisy as well. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to protect us, purify us, clean us from all types of hypocrisy, Ya Rabbil Alameen. And grant us pure Iman and pure faith. برحمتك يا أرحم الراحمين. سبحانك اللهم وبحمدك. أشهد أن لا إله إلا أنت نستغفرك ونتوب إليك. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.